Hi everyone, today I'm going to be ranking the John Lennon studio albums. Thanks a lot for joining me. So today I'm going to be looking at the 7 regular studio albums that John Lennon made from 1970 through to 1980, and I'm going to be ranking them from my least favourite through to my favourite. I'm going to be going through the CDs that I've got in the John Lennon signature box as my guides for you. So without further ado, let's start at number 7, my least favourite. Okay, I'm going with the Rock and Roll album, which came out in 1975. So this was the last album that John made before he took a long break from the music industry. And my own opinion is that I think he was just pretty much out of ideas at this point. And so he went back to his roots, to his rock and roll roots. And it's a trick that I think Paul McCartney's used a couple of times in his career when he needed something to fall back on. Whether for his own sanity or whatever, he went back to his early rock and roll roots. And I think John Lennon did that in this case because he really didn't have the strong muse at that time that he needed, that he'd had at the previous parts of his career. I think Stand By Me is a highlight of this album. I do like that version, and it's probably the one song on here that is recognisable to people who maybe aren't familiar with this album. It's appeared on various greatest hits albums. But other than that, they're okay. The decent rock and roll cover versions, but I don't think there's anything particularly inspired on here. And the fact that he took a break from the music business after this isn't any real surprise. Of course, he'd got back with Yoko, and Sean came along pretty soon afterwards, so he concentrated on being a father. But this was really sort of his sort of final contribution to the music business before he came back in 1980 with his sort of big finale, as it turned out to be. So number 7, John Lennon, Rock and Roll. In number 6, I'm going with Mind Games from 1973. So there is a lot of things on this album that I like. I like the title track, that's a good song. I really love Bring On The Lucy, Free the People. I think that's a fantastic song, and it's just a lot of fun. It's got a real good beat that keeps it going right through the song. And if you've never heard the Charlatans, Just When You're Thinking Things Over, I'd recommend you look that up, because that is one of the most blatant rip-offs in history of that song. Well worth checking out. Good song in its own right, but complete rip-off. So I do love Bring On The Lucy, Free the People. Another song on here that I've grown to like a lot more just recently is I Know, I Know. And that's because I got hold of the 2002 remix of this album, which I think really sort of helps to bring this album alive. But other than that, I think One Day at a Time is a nice song. Out the Blue is probably one of the highlights on here. But it was sort of around that, what was known as his sort of Lost Weekend kind of phase. It was sort of coming out the back end of that period, and it's not as good as the other albums for me. So I'm putting Mind Games at number 6. Okay, at number 5, I'm going with an album that a lot of people would have put right at the bottom of their rankings, but I'm going with Sometime in New York City from 1972. By far John's most political album, but despite that, I find there's a lot of fun on here to listen to. I just enjoy listening to it. So it's very much a joint John and Yoko album. Yoko has several songs on this album, and We're All Water at the end is just completely crazy, but I love it. It's such fun to listen to. John Sinclair is a song that I've always liked quite a lot on this album. I've known that for a long time before I got to know the album. Attica State's okay. Look at the Irish is probably the song that I'm least fond of. I don't particularly like the sentiment of the lyric there. I'm sure Irish people don't like being told that they would wish they were English instead. I can imagine that probably annoyed some of them. New York City is, yeah, it's a good rocker. I like that song. Sunday Bloody Sunday, it stomps along, it moves along, it's got plenty of energy, and it's okay to listen to. Sisters Oh Sisters, yeah, Sisters Oh Sisters, one of Yoko's songs. again, I really just enjoy that song. I think it's got a good melody and it's enjoyable to listen to. So although it is overtly political, it's an album that I really enjoy, and I'm putting that as my number 5. In 4th place, I'm going with John's final album that was released during his lifetime, 1980's Double Fantasy. So it was his first record back in the music business since the rock and roll album several years earlier, and I think he'd just got his energy back. He was ready. Just Like Starting Over is a fantastic opener. Obviously he's hamming it up, trying to do a bit of an Elvis impression in there, but a really good song. Clean Up Time is another good one. I'm Losing You's got a real sort of bluesy, laid back, chilled vibe to it. Beautiful Boy, of course, one of his great songs, and I know Paul McCartney has said that that's one of his favourite John Lennon songs, sort of a beautiful ballad for his son Sean. Watching the Wheels is it opens up very much like Imagine, really. It's like a sort of a modern day Imagine, and I like Yoko's contributions on here as well. So Kiss 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 is fun. Yes, I'm Your Angel, really good songs. Let's not forget Woman, of course, as well, another one of John's classics on here. One of the sort of highlights of his solo career, I would say, is Woman. And Dear Yoko at the end, which is sort of, I would think of that as a follow-up to Oh Yoko from the end of the Imagine album. And another important thing on here is the very opening of Just Like Starting Over with the bells, the sort of ding, ding, ding. I know John had sort of described that as a follow-on to the start of Plastic Ono Band, his first album in 1970, where you've got this sort of really depressing bells that start Mother, and then this was him sort of starting the 1980s with a ding ding, much more positive sort of frame of mind. I know John commented on that, and that's sort of clear to see that distinction between how he started this decade and how he started the 1970s in his own mind. So it was a really good return to form, and of course it was just tragic a few weeks later that he died. And we've got Milk and Honey as what might have been the follow-up album. I've not included it in these rankings, but I just really wish that we could have seen where he would have gone after this. It would have been really interesting to have seen, but real return to form. That's Double Fantasy at number 4. Okay, number 3 from 1974, I'm putting Walls and Bridges. I've always really loved this album. I think it's packed full of great songs. Great opener with Going Down on Love, and really important song in John's history, the second song, Whatever Gets You Through the Night, which was his duet with Elton John. So as the story goes, I mean, John had been split from Yoko for quite a while at this point, and when this record came out, Elton asked John if he would perform the song live with him on stage, and John Lennon didn't really want to do that, but he said, yeah, if it gets to number 1, I'll do it with you, not thinking that it would ever get to number 1, and it did. So John appeared in New York with Elton on stage doing Whatever Gets You Through the Night. Yoko was in the audience. At the end of that concert, John and Yoko were reunited, and of course were together for the rest of John's life then. So it's a very important song in the life of John Lennon, I believe. Old Dirt Road, really nice laid back song. What You Got, that's one of my favourites on this album, and it's just a real good rocker. John's got a real good sort of screamy voice on it, and a lot of fun in that song. And then we've got some, as we get into the middle of the album, we've got songs like Bless You and Scared, which are really nice songs, just very chilled out. Good recordings by John. Number 9, Dream, one of his classics. Beautiful melody to that, beautiful effect and vibe as well to that particular song. And of course the number 9 being John's favourite number, very prominent in his life. Born on the 9th. We had Revolution 9, number 9, Dream. Sean, of course, then was born on the 9th as well. So yeah, that's a great song. Steel and Glass, really interesting song, which was seen as an attack on various people. John claimed it was actually an attack on himself in an interview, I seem to remember, but you never could quite tell with John what he believed and what he didn't. So you can make your own mind up what that song's about, but it's a really good song, really good strings on that. And Nobody Loves You When You're Down and Out, a gorgeous song towards the end of the album. You've got a couple of songs at the end that maybe aren't quite as strong. Beef Jerky's okay, bit of a jam, fair enough, it's okay. And then Ya Ya is just sort of a tag along at the end. Nothing really special there, but I really like the vibe of this album. It feels like, to me, it feels like his most American sounding album. I don't know whether that's just me thinking that, or would you agree with that? Do you think that that does have an American vibe to it rather than sounding like it was written and recorded by an Englishman? I don't know. Let me know what you think on that one. But that's my number 3, Walls and Bridges. Okay, the final two. Both of these final two albums are classics, I believe, absolute classics. And it was a very tricky decision to decide which way around to put them, because I could have argued a case either way. But I've gone with, at number 2, my second favourite John Lennon album, Plastic Ono Band, from 1970's debut album. There's not really any slack on this album. It's just great from start to finish. Mother is, it's not the easiest song to listen to. In fact, not much of this album is the easiest stuff to listen to, because he was coming out of his primal scream therapy, and there's a lot of emotion and anger in these songs. But screaming about his mother and his father and how they left him and such. You know, mother, you left me, but I never left you. It's not easy to listen to, but a great song. Hold On, I really like that song, and I remember the first time I heard it was back in about 1990, and there's that moment where he goes, "Cookie." That came out the speaker. I was not expecting it. I'd not heard it before. I nearly jumped out of my seat. So I always have a little giggle to myself when I hear that now. I Found Out, it's got a really good sort of rhythm guitar riff to it that goes through. Really like that. Working Class Hero, that's a classic song. I remember that I had the Imagine 45 RPM single when I was a kid, and I used to play Working Class Hero in my bedroom, and my mum would hear the swearing and be shouting upstairs, "Shouldn't be listening to that." But that's mum's for you, isn't it? Isolation, great. Remember, yeah, that's a good song, probably not one of my highlights. I love the fact that on that song you have to turn your stereo right up. You think nothing's happening when you're not familiar with the album. Nothing's happening, but the song, I've never heard a fade in so long on a song as on Love, but it's a beautiful song. And God at the end, well, not at the end, but next to last song, God, just a phenomenal song, one of the absolute highlights of his career. And those lyrics, you know, there's no bigger nail in the coffin for the Beatles than when John Lennon sings, "I don't believe in Beatles, I just believe in me." It's really powerful stuff and a fantastic song. So it's certainly the most emotional of his albums, the angriest of his albums, and for reasons I'll explain in a moment, I've put this as number 2, but what an album. So at number 1, you've probably guessed it, I've put Imagine. I could have easily put Plastic Ono Band and made a case for that. The reason that I've gone with Imagine is that I think this is the peak of John Lennon showing what he can do when he really, really put the effort in to be as good as he was in the Beatles. I think the strength with Plastic Ono Band lies in its emotion and its anger and such like, but with Imagine, I think it lies in what he did in the studio with these songs. I don't know whether you agree with that, but that's how it comes across to me. Let me know. So Imagine, of course, you know, you don't need another person prattling on about the song Imagine, because you've heard enough people do that over the years, but it is a classic. I really like Crippled Inside, and especially on the new remix that came out in 2018. The remix of Crippled Inside just sounds fantastic and really gives new life to this song, I think. But it's a good, fun song. Jealous Guy, of course, one of his classics, harks back to the Beatles days. So originally written in 1968 when the Beatles were in India, and it was titled the Rishikesh song, and it was for the Maharishi, but retitled as Jealous Guy here. And he said that it's about Yoko and how he just loved her so much that he didn't want to share her with anybody. And the next sort of couple of songs are probably not the best on the album. It's So Hard, and then I Don't Want to Be a Soldier Mama, I Don't Want to Die, which I've never been massively keen on, but again, I think the new remix from last year makes that song a lot more listenable too, and I do appreciate it a lot more now. But then I think from that point onwards, it is just a phenomenal album. Give Me Some Truth. All right, there was anger on Plastic Ono Band, but there's some there as well on Give Me Some Truth. That's a biting song and really good performance. Oh My Love is absolutely gorgeous. I think one of his best melodies and that he did in his solo career. Absolutely beautiful. How Do You Sleep? Well, I do like the song. I enjoy listening to it, but it's not easy. As anybody who's watched any of my other videos knows, I'm a massive McCartney fan, and so it's not easy to listen to How Do You Sleep and John absolutely savaging him. I'm sure there must have been some regret on John's part at some of the things that he sang in that song, but I think he was just thinking, what can I do that will hurt Paul the most? What can I say that'll get at him the most? Yeah, okay, I'll say that the only song you've ever done was Yesterday. I'll describe your music as Muzak. I'll describe you as just a pretty face that you're not going to have for much longer. And I don't think he meant any of those things. He just wanted to think, how can I hurt Paul the most? And it just happened to end up on his most famous album. So I do like the song, but it is a tough listen. And then the last two songs, How and Oh Yoko, fantastic, both of them. How is a gorgeous ballad, great melody, beautiful performance by John. And Oh Yoko at the end is just such fun. I love, you know, whatever you think of Yoko, John absolutely loved that woman, and I like Yoko. I don't have a problem with Yoko at all. But it's just his love for her it comes out in such a joyous way in that song. It's a great melody. I love the piano that goes through it when the harmonica comes in. Everything about it is just fun and an enjoyable end to the album. So yeah, I've put it as number one just because I think it was the album that he put the most into in terms of trying to get it to be a musical statement like he was making in the Beatles. But on another day, I could easily say Plastic Ono Band. So that's my ranking of the John Lennon albums. Hope you've enjoyed that. Let me know your rankings, or, you know, have a go at me if you think I've got these completely wrong. Love to hear from you. I'm going to be doing some more of these ranking videos. Got a George Harrison one planned soon, probably a Bob Dylan one. If you're interested in those, love it if you subscribe to my channel so that you can get to see those. And I hope I'll see you again sometime. Thank you very much. Goodbye.